All right. Go Hawks! I'm not going to pretend like I'm a current Seahawk. I'm kind of one of these has-been guys. They don't even have the colors the same anymore or the logo. But that's definitely old. That's old school right there. And but still proud to be a part of the Hawks. Whenever I not only got to play for the Seahawks, very old, way back before a lot of you were even born. But I also had the chance to coach for the Seahawks as well, and I'm still a fan. I follow the team as much as I possibly can. With COVID, there's been kind of a separation between everybody from the past teams to the current teams because they're trying to keep people healthy. So we haven't been able to be, as far as true Seahawk players, coaches, and now fans. We try to get involved, but there's sort of a standoff that has to be there, that has to be in place for the team to be healthy. And my comments today are going to revolve around this idea of teamwork. And you know, GAF is a part of your team, and you're a part of their team. And I hope you can take advantage of many of the ideas that you've learned today and yesterday from GAF, but also I hope that I can bring you something from football and how an NFL team kind of creates this successful program year after year. And I hope that you can learn by it. And I think that you guys have, and gals have done the admirable, and that is spend your time away from your families, your friends, in a confined area when there's a lot going on and a lot more, there's a lot of choices that we all have. And for you to be here to kind of see what this company deeper is all about, and to learn and take the energy back with you to your own companies. I just think that's something that can't be, the value of it can't be bought, right? So congratulations to you. I won't have the chance to say that in the end here. I've been involved with football. Ted's 27 going on 28 years. And I've kind of drugged my family through football for almost 50 years now. And my wife and I are still married. I've been married 43 years. And my, and I have kids that still talk to me and everything. And they still rely on their dad. I haven't burnt my relationships with my children or my bride. So and really, it's about joy and all the things that my wife Joy has brought to our marriage and our relationship. And I just sort of hang in there and run alongside and try to inject when I can. But as far as football goes, they're all Seahawk fans. They don't like the Redskins because I'm gone from the Redskins. They don't any team that I've been fired from. Oh no, that is kind of a dirty word in our house. Whenever you crossed their dad, it becomes a dirty word. Anyway, I know this, that part of a successful business as yourself is this one of the exact ingredients involved with having a successful team, especially an NFL team. You really have to be able to learn and train as you go along, and never be satisfied with the idea that you've arrived. I know even as a coach today, I'm still learning, and I've been involved for that long. As a player, my mind, I still dream about being on the field and playing, and I can run. I can't run anymore. I have some arthritis in my left ankle due to an injury I had in the early 80s. But I still dream about scrambling around and throwing the ball with my left hand, and because I'm left-handed. But I just wonder, being involved that long, what I might still have to learn. And every year, the coaches that I talk with, the players that I'm coaching, there's always something that I can communicate better. I can see better things, and I understand what's going on. It's hard for me to watch a game on television. And I wonder if you drive around and you look at different, especially roofs, and you go, ugh, oh, that's wrong. Or you get up there and you start replacing a roof, not repairing it, and all of a sudden you realize that this person before you did a poor job, or because the standards are so high, right? So you get all that. And that's what happens in football, especially in the NFL. I know that I just have two sets of comments to make to you, and they're elements that have to be involved with a successful football team, and they are. And I wonder if you think the same way, because you have to ask yourself, why are you here? And I know why you're here, because GAF has got it together and they've trained you well. But in the NFL, players come in and out, coaches come in and out. We get hired and fired for so many different reasons. How do you have a successful team? And probably one of the bigger elements of a successful football team is creating the right environment, right? The environment that a player and a coach works in, hugely important to the success of a team. And when I talk about environment, what's the atmosphere? And a lot of you are owners and leaders in your own businesses, and you have to ask yourself, what kind of atmosphere do you create for the people that you employ or the customer that you serve as you're putting up these roofs or you're driving around? What kind of atmosphere or environment do you create? Pete Carroll has done a great job with the Seahawks. He really has. And I just as an example of this environment, when you go into his program, you can see people are upbeat. They're not walking slow. They are walking with purpose to get somewhere. And I was talking to Pete one day before morning practice at training camp. And every player and every coach that was coming out, I was outside and the players were coming at us and the field's behind us. And every time they were coming out, they were hitting and slapping the wall above the door. And then they'd walk out. And Pete and I were having this conversation. And all of a sudden Pete said, just a second. And he walked over to the player and he said, are you not ready? And the guy's in full gear, and he's got his helmet. He didn't forget his helmet. And he said, yes, Coach, I'm ready. He said, well, I didn't see you really slap the door. Oh. Player walks back, and then walks on the field. Good job. And so as the practice started, I went inside, and I tried to see what in the world they were slapping. And it was a sign, a painted sign above the door that said, all in. And that was one of the things that Pete had tried to instill in his players and in his coaches, and the equipment manager and the trainers, everybody involved with the program. That's one of the things that he tried to instill in them, is that we're going to be all in. But the point is not the sign or the phrase. The point is that he, in my mind, as a head coach and a position coach and a former player, in my mind, it was him paying attention to a detail that he set in place. Okay? So if you think about that, a successful team not only has little signs and adages and sayings and things like that, the successful ones are implemented. Those sayings are actually believed and worked. I know there's phrases We protect what matters most. That's a phrase, that's an adage, okay? We protect what matters most. And if GAF did not believe in that, first of all, they probably wouldn't have created that sign, but also they have to implement that. And you have to feel that as well for the environment to be right. I know there's a lot of coaches who are out there that have all these signs up, commitment to excellence, right? Pride, Seahawk pride or whatever team they're with, and they don't follow through. They just let it go. And following through with these details is a key ingredient for success, and it's the environment that I'm talking about, the details of the environment. So if you have things on the door of your trucks, you got to believe them, and you got to know why you have those things on your truck. The pride of having that means something, and it means something to people that are driving by who may or may not want to get you to come and help them with their issue that they have, all right? So healthy environment. And you have to ask yourself, thank you, you have to ask yourself, can you work freely in this environment? And, you know, do you know what the daily goal is of your company? Do you know what the season goal is of your company? And I'm not sure, is this the start of a year or is this the end of a year? It seems to me like the weather's going to be getting better, and here we go. So you'll have the opportunity to think these things through and create that environment. What I love about Pete, he pays attention to it, and that's the key. He pays attention to these details. Now, what happens to this atmosphere in your company and with an average football team when adversity rises? So adversity always comes, something happens, and inevitably in football, it's usually during games, it can be during practice, it can be less in a meeting, but definitely during games. It's unbelievable, the emotional roller coaster that happens in a game, whether we're doing great, and I'm going to try to do what my wife would say is don't get off on tangents, because I just thought of something really cool to say. Well, I'll just say it real quickly. I've played a game, and this has to do with this. I've played a game where I've thrown a couple touchdown passes in the first quarter. And so as I'm walking in at halftime, walking in to sit down at my locker, I'm thinking, I did my job. I did my job. You know, now it's up to everybody to, you know, come along with me. And I don't know how many passes I completed in the second half, but I didn't throw a touchdown pass at all, and I was very ineffective. We ended up losing the game. And I thought to myself, okay, what you have to do as a player is make sure you play every single play, and don't think so highly of yourself that we can't use you for the next couple of series. What happens to you when adversity strikes and somebody says no? I think there was some training on that. It's just an opportunity to get them to say yes, I guess, because you got to tell them to go look at the wind, right? That's part of the deal. Hey, the wind's coming. But I know this, that when adversity strikes, your belief system is questioned. And GAF, the Seattle Seahawks, or any team that's going to be successful has got to not abandon your belief system just because adversity strikes. Is the foundation still there? Yep. Is the standard still there? Yes. That's what you have to go on. So in a game when a quarterback has thrown an interception, now if you got money on the game, that's depressing, right? If you got money on that guy, that's depressing. But if you're just watching it for enjoyment, now that team has to overcome adversity. And how do they do it? And the great teams, they overcome adversity by sticking with their belief system. They don't abandon it. They work through it. Now, adjusting and following through with those adjustments, the quicker you can make adjustments, the better it can be. But sometimes, if a guy throws an interception, then you have a fumble, and then a guy drops a ball, and the punt gets blocked, there's hardly any chance. So now you've lost a game, and you looked awful. And a championship team can still do that, but they don't abandon their belief system. That coach refocuses them, and I'm just saying that that's one of the elements that has to be involved in a successful program, especially in the NFL, because things happen fast. We talked a little bit about environment, but in reality, it's all about the team. And a team in the NFL is strictly made up of individuals, right? You may be a one owner company, one individual doing all the work, and you do your whole thing. But mostly, there are, especially in the NFL, there's a whole heap of players, but they're all individuals. So they come there, and then they, as individuals, they're in little groups. And then in little groups, they become a bigger group: offense, defense, special teams. And then in that big group, when it all comes together, it's the Seahawks or the Broncos or whatever team is put out there. And I would say this, that the individual players that understand their part, this is key. And even the coaching staff, if we understand our part, from the head coach down to a coordinator, or to a position coach, or to a staff member, a quality control coach, and these are tiers of coaching. Every part is so important to the success of a team. And I've been the head coach of the Washington Redskins at the time. Now they're the Washington Commanders, and so I was a part of the history there, and we had several players that were individuals, and they never understood that they were just a part of it. They thought they were the whole thing, right? And so here I am whining, which is, right? So everybody's going, he whined. Your wife or your husband are going to come. He was whining on stage about, So my wife would say, quit whining, buck up, let's go, right? And she pulls me back into into reality. But as an individual player, what I have to do, and I'll tell you this, and maybe you can relate to this, I have to be open to learn. Just by your presence here, most of you have learned something. But you might have come and you fall into this idea that you're here, but you don't understand the vision of the company, right? If you don't understand the vision of the company, it's really hard to become a good teammate. And I see GAF as part of, they're really the coaches, if you will, and you're the players. And they might see themselves as the players, and you're the coaches, or one or the other. But you have to catch the vision of GAF if you can make it, so you can make it function well. And quite frankly, that's the way it has to be on a football team. They've got to catch the vision of the head coach or that organization, or there is no success. And you got to commit to that direction. You have to start each day, each game, or each play with the exact same attitude. And that might get, in football, I was the head coach here of the XFL Dragons. And all those players in the XFL wanted to become NFL players, which is admirable. And I wanted them to become NFL players because that's kind of a feather in all of our hats in Seattle and in the XFL program itself. But the thing that I found was very difficult, and I don't know if you can relate to this, was talking to my players about the mundane. Because I think anybody can be excited. You can be really excited about going home now and just getting ready to go because you've learned so much. You're excited, right? But once they're not here, the guys in the red shirts are not here, you're kind of on your own. And the same way in football. Once all the excitement is, we really want this thing, go Dragons! Now, we got to go to another meeting? I got to push more weight, I got to run, I got to practice. We practiced yesterday. I got to practice again? I got to do this again? And sometimes football, if your attitude isn't right, it becomes mundane. And if it becomes mundane, you can work through those mundane times, because it will, but you got to renew, and every day you got to get up saying, I'm going to get better today. One of the guys in the NFL who I'm a huge fan of is obviously a Seahawk, Russell Wilson, and when I watch him play, I honestly can say that he takes each play and tries to execute it as though that's the only play we're going to have today. That's how he plays it. And if he throws a pick, he'll go off the field, he'll regroup. When he comes back on, whatever play is called, if I have to hand it off, he's going to finish. If I'm called to throw it quick, he's going to finish. Or stand in the pocket. If I have to scramble because something broke down, he scrambles. But he's not turning to the guys and going, hey, what's the big deal? What's the deal? Or a guy drops a ball, hey, you don't see him badgering a player who drops a football. And I appreciate that about him, because I think what he has done is he's made himself, he's created a situation for himself that allows him to play each play as it comes and not worry about the adversity, the ups and downs, but he plays very steady. And I always say, in that game that I told you about throwing a couple touchdown passes and feeling so good about myself. How am I going to spike the ball next? I wasn't really acting medium. I wasn't really steady. So it took me a few series to get back in the game. Or if something happens to you or I in my game that dips with emotion, a fumble, or we didn't score, I still have to play the next series. And you have to play the next series as well. You get that? You catch that drift. So each day has got to be played as though it's a separate decision, and you can't have a separate agenda, or like I've even whined and moaned. I'm so needy that everything has to be perfect or the way I want it, or I'm not playing. We see that. We saw that this year in the NFL by a wide receiver. He was told to be off the field, and he took his uniform off and waved to the crowd, and that was it for him. Now, he's probably got other struggles, but not everything's going to be perfect, and not everything goes your way. Can you handle it? And that's the key thing about being a teammate or an individual that's trying to be a teammate. Mike Holmgren used to tell Matt Hasselbeck, I want to be able to trust you. What? You don't like my play? You don't like the play that I called? Mike was pretty headstrong as far as the play that I call is the right play. You don't like my play? And you have to call a lot of plays during the year. Well, Mike would say, Matt, I want to be able to trust you that you're going to execute the play. Now, there were times when Matt had the play call. Mike thought it was going to be a particular coverage, and it wasn't. It wasn't at all. It was completely the opposite. But what he expected Matt to do was to do the right thing with the ball, because the ball in the NFL is the most important thing, protecting the football. So he would expect him to, hey, Matt, you just got to bail me out. Throw the ball away, scramble, throw the ball away, but don't panic and throw a pick. So being trusted And you think about that for yourselves, and I don't know what that is for you, but everything's not perfect, and you got to be able to be trusted. I think one of the hardest things for football players, and I don't know this about you, is to come under authority, right? As a staff member, you have to be able to come under authority because you have to know the direction the company's going in. And if you are an owner of your own company and not the employee of your company, you have to understand about what it is to come under authority and treat that person or people who come under your authority with respect and with honor. And that's difficult too because some owners are very hard to work for. I know that. I've experienced that myself. But nobody else cares. Nobody cares. When you're in it, it almost feels so emotional that you can't do your job. And I think we both have to think of that, of what is it to come under authority and what is it to exert authority. And when those things come together, and I will tell you this, there's a good team developing. So those are the musts, right? And what I think is great about football, and there are more. I mean, I have a whole list of C's, of speaking with clarity, communicate, have community, those kinds of things, consistency, right? A lot of C's. But one of the things that happens in the NFL, and I don't know if this happens to you, is the NFL has a chance to take a breath after the Super Bowl. They get to take a breath. They can't take a breath for long because things start right back up. But in that respect for the coaches, it's kind of go time because now the coaches, and this might be what you've done over the winter months, and hopefully you've been able to work, but if you haven't, you've been able to evaluate your schemes. That's what we do. After the football season, we evaluate the schemes, right? We start asking ourselves what worked, what didn't work, and then we make changes. I'll use the word repair, but I know that it's an evil word here in this room. But you sort of have to repair what's broken. Guys start getting surgeries early so that they can participate in the spring football, but repairing. And once you've evaluated your schemes, you get to repair what is a big waste, right? You eliminate those things that when Jared was up here throwing the football and he had his elbow down, that's something that I could help you with to bring your elbow up above just a little thing, right? But those are the little details that help you become a great quarterback. Probably won't play in the NFL. I'm just saying. Then you have the chance, once you have got some of those repairs, maybe free agencies come in, you got new players, you've got a new coach because you've had to eliminate a coach, or that coach got elevated to another team and you have a new one. Now you make those adjustments and you start communicating with those new players and with those new coaches about what we're all about, right? And then here's the key thing: when you have done all your evaluations, especially your scheme evaluations, and you've put it all together, you've put it into summary. If you're that organized, you're not just kind of floating around. Now you have the chance to experiment with it. This is what's probably great about what you guys have done the last couple of days here is maybe you've got some new ideas on how to sell, how to work, what products. I love technology. I love products. I don't tinker on roofs that much, but I tell you, I got straps on my roof so I can climb it with a harness and air blow so I can preserve my roof. I'll tell you that. So I kind of thought ahead a little bit, but once you get all your stuff evaluated and repaired, now you can experiment with it, especially for a football team in the off season. You experiment, you test these things. Do they work? If they do, you implement them. If they don't, it's out. But there's got to be a time during the year that you can experiment with new ideas and new thoughts. And now that you have some, man, I'd go for it, right? And then once you've experimented and you've implemented those new thoughts and you've recommitted that vision and that direction, you create this updated version of where you're headed. And that's what you've got to communicate in the NFL to your team. Do you know, and I'll kind of close with this, one of the things that happens in the NFL is when a team gets to the playoffs, and I love the playoffs, but and I didn't find this out until we went to the Super Bowl when I was here with Mike Holmgren. As you get further and you know your team's winning, and we had the chance to be in 3 playoff games because we were a wild card team, and we had won all 3 of those games. Now we lost the Super Bowl, or as Mike would say, the officials helped us lose the Super Bowl against the Steelers. But this is a phenomenon that happened. I didn't realize once you get to into the playoffs, and we had won the AFC West, you coach less. How does that happen? You'd think we'd be coaching harder, but here's what happens. The players take over. The players you just tell them what's going to happen, and they police themselves. They all of a sudden rise up. Losing teams, they find ways to make excuses. Get me out of here. I hate it here, right? Losing teams. And that's unfortunate. But the championship teams, you don't hardly, I mean, you're valuable as a coach because you're part of the whole group. But it doesn't have to be about me. It's really about the players. And I thought that was just such a phenomenon. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I coached in a lesser way when the team was in the playoffs because they all rose up and became a whole. And you got all these individuals becoming little groups, becoming bigger groups, and then as a whole. And there's enough there for everybody. They just have to know the role that they have and understand how to navigate it. We had a strength coach in Seattle. His name was Mike Clark, and he had this. He had a saying up on his wall, and it went like this: "If you always do what you've always done, you'll be what you've always been." If you always do what you've always done, you'll be what you've always been. And that rings true for a team. Even a championship team, even a Super Bowl championship team like the Rams now, everybody on that team will be calling themselves Super Bowl champion whoever. They have to make adjustments and they have to become better because every team is shooting for them. And I'm sure in this industry there's a lot of competition. And they're shooting for GAF, right? They want to be better than GAF. And so GAF is saying, hey, you're not going to be better than us. Why? Because we're going to do this. And I think in each and every one of your companies, it's got to be the same way. If you had a great season, awesome. How can you have a better season? How can you dominate, right, in the force? So don't adhere to doing what you've always done, right? Because you'll be what you've always been. Well, hey, coach, we've been a champion. Okay, great. Now get better. When Matt Hasselbeck, he had been to the Super Bowl. He had been all pro for 3 or 4 years in a row. What was I going to say to him in the off season? Because we set goals early in the off season. In this time, you take a breath. You know what I said to him? Okay, let's you and I talk. You've accomplished all these goals. We've been to a Super Bowl. Now you haven't won, so there's a goal for you. But why does Peyton Manning always have to be the MVP of the league? That's what I put to him. Why don't you, Matt Hasselbeck, become the MVP of the entire league? And so we set that as his goal for that season. And I left and went to the Redskins. But he set that goal. Did they go? No. But those are the kinds of things that he was trying to strive for himself. Okay, so dominant teams do have these elements inside of themselves, okay? And if you've caught anything, don't lose it. And I know you've caught a lot more than what I've brought you today. You know what to do. So I would say go do it. And I certainly wish you the best. All right, thank you very much. All right.